All right, guys. I got a quick one for you today. I got the Victor Jr. 302. That's going to match up with the GT40P project. These are going to be going in a eighth mile dragster. Fox body. Notchback. 456 gears. I have the whole combo somewhere. I got to show you guys. Somebody did some cleaning up on it, but in reality, I don't think it did a whole lot to the flow numbers. I'll have to apologize to Ford because I originally said I thought this only flowed about 240, and that comes from my experience with Chevy Victor Jr. Now, this is the Ford Victor Jr., which actually did much better. Now, let's talk about the layout a little bit before we get too crazy. Okay. We know we've got 4 long runners, 4 short runners, okay? And if you take a look at how they come out of the plenum, the 4 centers have an easier time drawing the air and fuel from all 4 barrels, right? All right, it may not be easy to see. There we go, we got some light now. If you take a look at that existing edge, all right, it's relatively sharp right here, right? And then it's rounded. Do you think that's by accident, or do you think that's on purpose? Well, let's take a quick look at the flows, and we'll dictate what we need to do after we see the flow difference on the short ports and the long ports. Okay, let's shrink this up a little bit. Okay, I got 270, 280, 285, 278. Okay, both of the outers flow a little bit less, right? So what we want to do on these is we want to straighten this edge out, relatively sharp, and a big radius on this. And what that'll do is it'll force a little more air into these. And if you take a look how wide these are versus how wide these are definitely wider than these. Interesting, right? This is the first time I got my hands on a Ford Victor Jr., so it'll be a learning curve for me, but I can tell right away by the curve right here. I don't know how much these have been modified from stock. There's some decent metal there. I could definitely change it. This is really going to want a spacer on it. In reality, if he has the hood room, I'd like to see 2 spacers. 1 inch tapered going into 1 inch open. Especially if he wants to use that little carburetor. He's got a small carburetor. Okay. Take a look at the other side flows, right? 282, 296, 283, 276, right? Outer ones are a little bit less than the center ones, okay? These two are almost identical. So, what would we want to do? All right? This is our highest flowing port. We're going to do the least amount to this one, right? And we're going to try to bring the rest of these bad boys up. And I should say that this old Chevy Victor Jr. flows like 330. Okay, that's the one from my Chevelle from the 90s. Okay, while it was on the bench, I decided to take a few air speeds of just 2 ports. And you can see, okay, 318, 300, 310, 310. Actually, it's way more even than I would have expected it to be. Way more even. How did this one do? 311, 315, 333, 324. Notice the velocity is higher on this one, right? We're flowing more on it, so the velocity is also going to go up. So we definitely need to we're going to be cleaning up the shorties and doing much more work to the long ones, right? You can see they've had some work done to them, but I don't think it was a radical change. And they're relatively even. I mean, compare those numbers to what we were getting on that dual plane wind, right? These are pretty close to each other. Actually, our highest flow is the 296 short port. Okay, I said 285. But I have no doubt that with a little cleanup work, this was not going to hold back the P-heads at all. This is going to work out really well. Alright guys, just a short one tonight. Haven't gotten anything done yet and it's already late. But I did have a really interesting conversation with a super stock racer who was asking about some Ford chambers and what he could do to get a little more power out of them. So that's where our time went tonight. Alright guys, have a good night.